Here we are again, another episode of Chatting with Charlie. And today I'm in conversation with Dafydd. Dafydd, I like to introduce my guests just at the start, just so it's more of actually a preface of how I see my guests and, get an insight to what they look like to me from my perspective. So, if I may, Dafydd was someone I met at Deadly Hands, an arm wrestling event in 2022. And quite quickly, you can tell quite quickly when you speak to someone that this is someone that's doing more than arm wrestling. So, woo, what a relief that was straight away. I was like, this guy is fucking on it. Good. Because at the time, I wasn't stumbling across many people. I just had this kind of interaction with all these arm wrestlers, but not everyone saw the business side of it, the entrepreneurial side of it, the vision of where the sport was growing. And I immediately felt that with Daf. And since then, it's more just been a kind of a whirlwind or a storm of interchanging many different voice notes, many different experiences that step well out of the boundaries of what arm wrestling is. And we'll cover some of them today. But I'm learning more about Daf all the time. And I'm hoping to learn so much more in this episode here today whilst we have you here. So Daf, thank you very much for being here today and welcome to the show.
My pleasure, brother. Thanks for having me.
So me and you, of course, have probably known each other for about a year now, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's start with, I'm wearing the Roar arm wrestling t-shirt, right? We'll explore a little bit about Roar, but let's start about a little bit more about your history before arm wrestling. I'm curious to know that. What before arm wrestling took up your focus? How was your life kind of expressing itself, and how has it changed since you found arm wrestling?
Wow. Yeah, that's a broad question. So for a few years before arm wrestling, I was into strongman, just general gym training with the guys. We had our own little gym. We did that for about 3 years before COVID struck. And when COVID struck, I was bubbled up with my good friend, Big Dwayne. And we ended up doing a lot of arm wrestling because that's sort of all we had the option to do. We couldn't do any strongman competitions, which we trained so hard for. And we never competed. And yeah, we enjoyed arm wrestling. We enjoyed the online community. I saw that there wasn't really anybody in my area. So that meant there was room for growth. And then when we did reach out to other Welsh people, it was a whirlwind from there. The training all over the country has been phenomenal. We've gone from just training in my little workshop gym to literally traveling the country, competing all over the place. So it's been an absolute whirlwind. But yeah, the passion for strength training was always there.
Mm. One word I'm going to pick out of there straight away, and we're going to go straight into this because you're saying growth and you're using it in a capacity of community, of it's not just like you're interested in arm wrestling, you want to be a phenomenal arm wrestler. It's broader. Where does that experience come from? Is that natural to you? Is that something you've learned over time?
Yeah, it's pretty natural to me. I've always been like a kind of team player kind of guy. But in my own pursuits, I noticed that if I didn't have someone there to challenge me, to push me, then I wouldn't pursue things for very long. It's remarkably difficult to do something on your own all the time. Whereas in the gym, I'd love hanging out after the training. We'd get the barbecue out during the summer, that kind of thing. And it just made everything better. It goes from the gym being a discipline that you should pursue to becoming a discipline that you want to pursue when you add the community factor.
Yeah, that community factor, man. That's like a different driving force than let me get up, let me just be a good arm wrestler, because you get this stacking effect. And I know that you've utilized arm wrestling as also an element to network for sure. Yeah. And also, like you're saying with the barbecue, in that you're bringing something as a reason. People need a birthday, they need a Halloween, they need a Christmas to celebrate. But arm wrestling, you can just fucking do whatever you want, whenever you want, right?
Well, we're at the stage now where we've got back-to-back events week after the other. We've got more than one event every single month this year. So it's literally, there's more than what any one person can do now.
Mm. And are you striving? Would you say you're striving for the dream? Like explore the dream world a little bit of like, I'd ideally like to be doing X. Is your dream to kind of join and help build the arm wrestling empire so there's more money coming into the sport in general?
Yeah, for sure. I want to see it for other people that I've been in the sport with, you know, friends and even competitors. I want to see it for everyone, and I want to help grow that. But most of all, you know, for selfish reasons, is if you're going to be part of a sport, it's better to be part of a successful, booming sport. So that's what I want to see. I want to be busy as an arm wrestler, busy as a promoter, and just generally busy as a person. You know, I like to meet new people. I like to have a broad number of people I interact with, and that comes from the community of sports. I've seen it in rugby, I've seen it in snooker, for instance. There's a huge potential in this game for it to grow massively, more than we've seen.
Mm. One thing I'm excited about, because I can already tell in this episode, is one, the patterns that come up. These patterns is going to be interesting as these episodes actually get released for more context for the audience. But the plethora of people that I connect to, there's patterns in between them all.
Yeah.
And secondly, probably a lot of young kids that aren't into arm wrestling could find this episode and start to send you DMs. That's what I'm excited for. If you get your DMs filled with people that create amazing short form content, they can do it
Yeah.
rapidly quick. You can get, because for people that don't know, Daf has been the guy for at least the last year. Things have changed slightly in the last maybe back end, but to get all the fucking footage that is like it's been run through a continuity filter of this flame writing, the matches that we want to see, because not everyone can show up to these events. So you've done that job of getting behind the camera, clicking
Yeah.
record, and being like, right, I just need to make sure I get all these matches. So I'm excited to bring more people into your network because that can still be captured, but the workload of editing to help give someone an insight that doesn't understand how much work and energy and effort goes into trying to keep up with everything that's going on.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, I film these events. I film my own stuff for my own pages. But whilst I'm there, I try to capture as much as I can, just because I think it's too good just to be left there unrecorded and unproduced. So I do what I can on my own. Some events, I leave the event with over 100 GB of footage. Maybe, you know, that's 250 different files that need to be processed into what our matches, you know. And it's a lot of work, but I'm quite happy to do it because you know I can process through them fairly quickly now. I'm getting good at doing that. But yeah, like you said as well, getting people involved. It's a fantastic way to start your journey, whether it's arm wrestling or anything. Is you can contribute value to things. You know, like I wasn't always a great arm wrestler. You know, I'm not. I'm still on the journey now, but by using those skills I've serviced the arm wrestling community before being a good arm wrestler. You know, that the transition is happening for me, where I'll be putting more and more focus into this hand. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that'll open the door for other people to do the same thing that I've done, you know, and a lot of people are interested because you've seen the growth of my social medias. You know, people want to see what we're doing out there on the table and off the table.
Mm. Yeah, one thing I've really admired, respected, been a part of is GripFest. And GripFest is it transcends arm wrestling. It brings in the area of strength in the hand with for people that don't know, there was a guy, same day I met Daff, there was a guy floating around. He was about the same height as me. And he was talking, if I can't do his I can't do his voice, but he was talking in this weird way. I was like, this guy knows something. And I later found out that he was a grip world champion that we know as Jerome Bloom. And what you've managed to do really, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you've managed to basically bring all of Jerome's expertise in and what he understands about grip to merge that into the arm wrestling scene, which has been, it's been like, I haven't been to every arm wrestling event last year, but one of the biggest events that I see is these GripFest events that are popping up, especially in different locations from Wales to start with, then to Oxford. How how much more room do you think there is to keep within the call it the context of arm wrestling, grip, and then arm wrestling? Do you think it's still relative? You start to bring in deadlift and bench press world champions, or do you feel like there's a cut-off point to what you can actually bring into one event?
Yeah, so I think grip and arm wrestling go together literally hand in hand. You know, it comes down to so many of the similar fundamental strengths that a lot of grip guys are good on the table and vice versa. And there's also a massive untapped community with the grip sports. And I'd experienced that from strongman. So strongman is also connected with the grip community. Naturally, in strongman, you use your hands a lot. So I always enjoyed the grip community and the grip challenges. And I knew that there were so many people out there that weren't really expressing what they can do in grip, or even if they were, it wasn't being publicized particularly. So I thought, look, let's link these two together. I'd spoken with Jerome, and Jerome had expressed that he had to cancel a grip event because it was under supported. So I said, well, come with us. You know, we'll combine a grip challenge or two with a few arm wrestling matches or two with a few exhibition type things, and we make a festival out of it, you know. And I think they can go far because you don't need your arms to be fresh for them. So you could be training 100% of the time. You don't need a rest. You can just turn up and enjoy the day. And they could be attached to other events. So, for instance, most PA events are Saturdays. Well, we could do GripFest the following day, you know, and then it gives more people a reason to go to both events. And it makes use of the people who are already there. So I think that the sky's the limit, really.
Mm. Yeah, you're stacking, and at the same time, like I'm seeing it available to families, available to the public. Kind of that's one thing that I've really narrowed down on, and I haven't been able to put too much time into arm wrestling recently. But what I realized the back end of last year was you can only go so far trying to reach the people that already know about what this is, right? Now we have to get arm wrestling translated to the layman, to the public, of for some reason they need to be captivated into this for them to have an interest, because arm wrestling's at a plateau. I would say there's a plateau that it can't break through, and it's still considered for some crazy reason as equivalent to slap fights. People have gone, oh, that slap fight thing. It's like, the fuck are you talking about? That's like saying golf is like boxing. It's like completely different. So I've been working really hard, and I realize it is a challenge, especially without budget. But would you say that there's something that needs to happen in arm wrestling specifically, a specific star, a specific festival that is going to give that bridge to the public?
Yeah, so I don't think anyone has hit the magic formula yet. So if you look at all the other established arm wrestling leagues, they're not easily digestible content pieces. They're usually part of a larger system. Like the best moments of arm wrestling are typically found in the middle of a massive live stream or on some private websites, for instance. They're not really reaching out to the masses, you know. And what I'd like to see more is individual athletes, because we've got quite a few of them. I'd like to see them putting out short form media to not only their own social followings, but to news outlets and other options that'll get the sport out there from an athlete level to the people, because people love an athlete, you know. They want to get behind their guy. They want to learn from their guy. They think, you know, if I just do what that guy did, then I'll get there. It's much like Devon Larratt is an inspiration to us. You know, we need to empower the current generation of athletes to be the next Devon Larratt for a lot of other people. And that can be done, you know, and the textbook for that has already been written. And if you look at my sort of Instagram page, more so than the YouTube page, which is a bit quiet because I haven't got the time, and also like Tim Dungeon Master's page, and also the Circle of Arms page now, we're putting out digestible content pieces that are really small, really bite-size content pieces And I like what the other, like, it's important what Arm Gods does, which is like a long form stream. And the PAA, these tournaments, and Arm Wars, these exhibition matches, that's all important. But you need that reach on a boots on the ground level, you know, where all the athletes are being empowered. So you can see this in the Pro Panja League, which is based in India, and their athletes are doing extremely well. So their arm wrestlers are sat around 5,000 followers, up to about 80, maybe one or two have passed 100,000 followers. And that's a huge amount of their athletic roster are doing very well on social media. And that reach is shows, because their videos, they're growing extremely quickly now, whereas they weren't this time 6 months ago or a year ago. That method has worked extremely well for them. You know, you're seeing the individual being supported, and then you're seeing the league being supported because of that individual support.
That resonates so hard, man. Like everything I'm surrounded about right now was built off the bedrock of, sure, run a business, sure, make a lot of money, but what about something happening to that business? What about something changing in the future? What's the thing that always carries with you? And that's yourself. And people refer to it in this space as develop a personal brand. Ensure that you are in a position to, you know, one technique in the online space is to capture as many emails as possible. Because if a site goes down, if your Twitter gets blocked, if some bullshit happens, you'll be in a situation later on to be like, well, I've still got 1,000 people on my email list that's private, direct content. And I'm not a guy that can hide. I'm very transparent about how I am and how I express. And I'm around these guys, Daff, as you know, and it isn't easy for them all to see the value of what we see in them. Like, what would you say is like not a strategy, because it sounds like too much of a technique, but what would you find as an actual successful approach to someone that is a star? They don't realize they're a star, to get them to just, even if it's be in front of the camera in a more comfortable way, even be on a show like this for people to see. What would you say to someone that's not really believing in themselves right now?
Well, I've been asked this a lot by a lot of people. So I thought I'll write a little leaflet of like pointers of what I did. I was thinking I'll put down 10, 20 things, you know, put an interesting bio, put a nice profile picture there, develop a content stream that you can reliably reproduce again and again and again. For instance, in arm wrestling, table time is an easy content piece. You can title it in any number of ways. It can be interesting, it can be educational, whatever. But when I wrote that leaflet, it ended up turning into like a 10-page little document. It was quite extensive, and that's still the tip of the iceberg, really. So what I'd like to see is more support from more developed people to say, run this system of 5 steps, then run this system of 8 steps, then run this system of 2 steps, and you know, so you can grow people in a non-time consuming kind of way. So like when people ask me now, I just send them those 10 pages, and they generally don't message me again, you know, and they can crack on with their own sort of plans. Then they know to make reels less than 30 seconds. They know to post reliably 3 times a week, and this and that and everything. And it's just rinse and repeat, I think. And if you look at the modern YouTube model, it's like hammer out shorts, for instance, you know. And for me, I don't do those steps yet. You know, I need to do a lot more of it. So I'm not following my own guidance there. I like to put out a longer content piece or whatever. But we just need to empower more people. And I think leagues can do that. But athletes need to take that responsibility on board. And it feels like, oh, well, not everyone can be sort of the star of the show, you know, but everyone, they really can be. They really can be, because a lot of the times you'll have a crappy arm wrestler and everyone wants to see the guy pull just because, you know, he's been putting his training out there. He's interacted in the groups a little bit, and he's asked for training advice. And all of a sudden he's a character and there's a story to be told, you know? And a lot of people are lucky. For instance, like Club Torture arm wrestlers or Leeds arm wrestlers or Roar arm wrestlers. Roar arm wrestlers have pretty much got it made now because all they've got to do is stick on a red shirt and they're a sellable story. You know, they can go to pull for Circle of Arms and they can go to pull for whoever, and there's a story to be told there. You know, it's like we've got Club Torture versus Roar Arm Wrestling or Leeds Arm Wrestling and in their white shirts. You know, Sussex Arm Wrestling, for instance, in their purple. It's distinctive, and all you need is a purple Sussex shirt and a raw red shirt, and bam, you've got yourself a content piece. It doesn't really matter how good the match is. You know, it could be an average match, but because there's that story being told, it means that much more, I think.
100%. You bang on the money with the components that work, which is storytelling. Translating what you're saying is also conjuring emotion. There needs to be some emotive feeling that we feel when we see someone. And as an exaggeration, Devon is someone that you can only have to look at a GIF of him, you know, like a still, and you're like, that guy's fucking in some different place right there.
Yeah.
And there's a few people that are holding and harnessing that. Jordan Champ comes to my mind if you really capture elements of what he does. But I'm in an interesting place, Daff, where I've crossed the bridge and I found the island of where the right resources are. And I'm like, shit, I've got someone that can actually create viral TikTok content. And they can post up to 4 times a day on TikTok. They can run everything. We can delegate to teams. You know, that applied in many different areas. I've got the teams around me. The missing factor right now, as much as it's sad to say, it's true, is money. How do we start to bring money into the sport of arm wrestling?
Wow, that's a great question. So you've got a few models to look at that have already been used. So, for instance, pay-per-view of main events, pay-per-view of exclusive matches, monthly subscriptions for exclusive content or exclusive services off the back of those monthly subscriptions. You've got individual sales then, so you can have merchandise off the back of these brands. It's difficult. For me, I've got like a plan to approach a lot of different avenues for income. It's going to be my full-time thing, you know, from as soon as I sell this house, the money is going to go towards me making that a reality, you know, and I'll have about 2 or 3 years in which to do that. So I don't know what the silver bullet is, but for me, it's definitely a combination of partnerships, sponsorships, product sales. Eventually, you know, we're in the test phase of that now. It's not profitable, but you know, we're working the system slowly. Even to the point of sort of appearance fees, where you know, I can see a world where Circle of Arms would be paid to put an event on, enough money that they can then also pay athletes to put the event on, if that makes sense. But we're not there. You know, I've seen a few arm wrestlers recently call for payment. Those same arm wrestlers have never ever held an event before. They've never invested in an event and lost a lot of money like we have, you know. They're just calling for money. They can't see how that money is going to be created. And yeah, it's a difficult thing to do, you know, like Arm Wars have done very well with their monthly subscription model. Arm Gods have done well with their combination of monthly and pay-per-view. East vs. West and King of the Table are doing rather well with their pay-per-views. So, you know, I think the main thing that's missing at the minute is sponsorship, because we haven't reached the mass audience yet. So once we reach the mass audience and start to get numbers up past the 10K views, into the hundreds of thousands of views, then your sponsorship opportunities are going to be realized, I think, and that'll probably be the ultimate factor that'll bring money into the sport.
These are very difficult questions to have answers to, but this really, for me, and the purpose of all these episodes is information. And there is a point where we're at this point of like, well, we're limited by the amount of time that we've had time is an element. And then also what I realized, because I'm in many different communities, one of them I overlook is the parkour community, obviously arm wrestling. I see the MMA, I see the boxing, I even see certain areas of gaming and stuff. And what I find quite interesting, this is rife in parkour community, and it's quite kind of similar in the arm wrestling, which is people aren't willing to spend so much money. And there's like a financial IQ that needs to elevate of, okay, where everyone's earning a little bit of money. Money's a difficult topic for some people, but we're all earning some. We're probably, most of us, spending money on shit. And if we can learn a different kind of way of spending or putting money into different places, I'll give a real life example, which was subscribing to your Patreon, as I did early in the start, was, and I'll be honest with you, it wasn't even just to take content from your Patreon. You know, like I got a chance to go through it, but I also wouldn't have given a fuck if I didn't see any videos. It was more, there's a doer. This is the industry. This is the niche that we're in. Let me put 12 quid a month aside for that. You know, even if I have to swap, all right, fuck Netflix. I'm not watching Netflix. Let me go here. And we can start to keep money moving. We actually enable someone like you, Daph, like in that situation, how much more energy to get when that money is coming in, even if it's just a little amount.
Yeah, so I'm on Patreon. I think I peaked out at 7 or something members on Patreon. That was when I was sort of heavily promoting it on the Instagram. The last 6 months, I haven't promoted it because I didn't feel like I could actually follow up with any content on there just because of time demands. But it showed me in the early days that it could work, you know, and it's not so much like how much you can make, it's a sign of what you could make down the line, you know. So for instance, if I'm at 50 quid a month of fan subscriptions, that tells me it's worth putting in 10 times the effort because there could be 10 times the income off the back of them. And that would really start to open doors. Like if you look at Arm Gods, they've got 50, 60 members on a monthly basis. I'm sure the more long-standing organizations have probably got hundreds. I know Aussie Arm Wrestler, Portray, they've got over 100 patrons. So it shows that people should put the effort in and invest a little bit of money in that because, you know, there is something coming off the back of it for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And for me personally, me sharing to everyone that can hear this episode, my life has changed drastically by investing in myself in some way, investing into something that I believe in. And I don't know how to say this in a nice way to people, but if you're asleep, you're fucked because the online space is moving so quickly that if you do not recognize that, like the old world is gone. It's weird. It's almost like the light takes a little while from the star to reach our eyes, kind of thing. It's gone, but we just haven't recognized it yet. And the new online space of us building communities, developing sports, running events, earning money, athletes getting paid, people feeding their families from what they love to do happens by actually getting involved and putting your money in these places. And you will see drastically the difference of free content, stuff that you just subconsciously perceive as not valuable. It's free. So even 5 quid. I want something from this now. And what you actually take from your own life. So if you get to that point of investment. So this is just an encouragement in general across the board for anyone that listens to this. If there is an opportunity for you to support financially in any way, something that you're interested in, you're going to get back tenfold, providing the individual's offering value. So it's something that we need to move towards anyway. And bringing it full circle, kind of to round off the arm wrestling. When you mention people like Jake, you mentioned Coach Ray, you mentioned people that in the arm wrestling space already have big established followers. There's arm gods going off the back of the OGs in the scene that have actually risen into this new online space. But being arm wrestlers for ages, Paul being fucking, God knows how old Paul is, but he's in the shopping malls at the same videos that we've all watched of Devon Lauren pulling fucking Michael Todd and all these videos. So in general, when you look at arm wrestling, would you say that there's anything specifically anyone's doing that makes them more special? Or do you think there's, and what I'm trying to bring in here is this abundance mentality that now everyone's got something to give here, everyone's got something to bring, and we should kind of scope the whole field of what everyone is doing?
Yeah, we're quite lucky now compared to what they had to go through. You know, like if you look at Neil Pickup, if you look at Paul, those guys went through a number of phases where they'd almost given up on promotion because it was, you know, diminishing returns. And now it's the opposite, where if anyone, any kind of investment at the minute in like you said, people's own persona, it's just paying off immediately thanks to social media. You know, it's people love athletes, they will get behind your page. Those guys back in the day, they had to do things and they just had an empty room. You know, they didn't have people to work with. So they've done the hardest part of the work. I'd say if you look at Paul's a good example. You know, dream, believe, achieve. It's cheesy and it's kind of cliche, but it works. You know, it's true. And like you
Can't
said,
deny it. You can't deny that, yeah.
People need to wake up. I mean, the opportunities that our previous generations had, we no longer have those opportunities. I was a biochemical engineer. I got paid well. I was very lucky. Very few people have that chance now. And if they do, the wealth just still isn't just, it isn't worth what it was, you know. So you could have a very successful job now and you're still just not getting by because of this massive transfer of wealth that's happened over the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, the middle class has been destroyed. So if you're in the middle class, well done, try and stay there. But more than likely, if you're listening to this, you've got nothing behind you, or if you do, it's been eroded to interest. So you have to get behind yourself. And if you do that now, it's just going to pay off big time.
Segueing slightly away from the arm wrestling, what we're touching on is these themes of like personal confidence, belief, right? Being able to get out there yourself, be independent and go, right, this is what I want to do. For you personally, outside of arm wrestling, what else do you want to see happen? And this is an opportunity, Daf, to really what I call flex. Like, where do you see yourself going in the next 3 to 5 years? Like a general week, a day to you. Flex a little bit for me. What do you see yourself in?
Wow. Yeah, so yeah, my life has taken a massive turn where I was sort of a family man, had the home, the relationship sort of fell apart, whatever, we grew apart. So the house has been sold. So for me, I'm sat on a huge amount of equity and I've got that choice of where to go, you know, and I've thought long and hard about what you're saying. Where do I see myself in 5 years? And I don't know what I should do really, because what I feel like doing goes against every sensible sort of advice that anyone's given me. And what I want to do is travel. So I'm going to take my money, invest most of it, and with some of it, buy an RV and just travel the country. You know, I want to pull everyone. I want to empower events, hold my own events, and just grow and enjoy my time. You know, time is the ultimate asset for me. I've chased money for a long, long time. And yeah, it's got me places, you know, it's great. It's good to have equity. But once you've got equity, it's time, and the enjoyment of your time is first and foremost. And for me, you know, I could spend another 20 years, make a couple of million or whatever, and then have no time. So I'd rather have low costs and lots of time to my disposal. So hopefully I just enjoy traveling and I can make it work, and I'll keep doing it forever. Basically, you know, the RVs I'm looking at look like palaces on the inside, and like, why not? If it works and the costs are minimal, and I get to go and arm wrestle every weekend or meet new people every week, twice a week, and see everything in this country and maybe beyond. You know, in 5 years, I'd like to end up maybe visiting Kiev after the conflict is resolved. Maybe go and visit Kiev. It was a big arm wrestling state, so I'd like to go back and you know, help them get that back up and running when the conflict resides. Yeah, so it's hard to say where I'll be really. I just want to be free every day to just pursue my own interests, which is getting stronger, getting better at arm wrestling, getting better at content production, getting better just enjoying every day, you know, go out and climb that a mountain or go and see a new gym and meet new people. That's where I see it really. I'm not chasing material wealth anymore. I've done that for long enough.
Before I bring into a segment where I'll get you to share with us a story, speaking wisdom, man, like there's nothing but realness here. And when you're speaking it, it's actually refreshing. It warms me because, you know, there's an ego that needs to be used to attain wealth. But underneath it, if you don't see the fucking point, it's about doing what you want and you want to be free and you have peace, then you're actually like, you need to slow down for a moment and actually reassess where you're going, where your moral compass is. And I'm full of warmth, Daph, because one, I see the work that you're doing and I'm around people that are already making millions. And I see that I might get some flack for this, but I see that they're not that fucking smart. They're not that smart. They're just focused and disciplined and they're
Yeah.
ruthless motherfuckers. So they just get after it. But what fills me full of warmth is the generation that can start to, and that's not an age thing, that's just a kind of movement thing where people are able to make a lot of money. Millions will start to become very casual. You know, something like 10K a month will be like standard. Oh, you're not making 10K a month? Don't even talk to me, kind of thing. It'll be a
Yeah.
level of standard. And in this vision that you described, I see that as you can actually do that more. Because as long as you've got internet connection, that money can pour into you. And especially as little things that me and you have discussed working on, once you've got something organized, systemized, that money's cha-chinging all day long whilst you aren't traveling. So think about this. Think about you've already made it. You're already on the winning path. So is there anything aside? I mean, you mentioned Kiev there, but what else drives you? Before we get into, I'm going to ask you to tell a certain story, but what else drives you as a man? Like, what do you find culture, society needs? What do you see that pisses you off almost that makes you want to change shit?
Yeah, I mean, what pisses me off is the opportunity has all been lost. For my generation, I was born in 1989. I think I was actually the last generation to have any kind of opportunity like our forefathers had. Like you could be a successful um, career man in almost any industry today, and it won't get you the life that you deserve. You won't be able to take your family on holiday. If you can afford to have a family, or even a home. You know, you could be an engineer and not afford a home nowadays, which is just so contrary to all logic, really. Where if you're a working man, you should be able to afford these things. And the only reason why we can't in this country and the Western world and globally now is this transfer of wealth has been insane. Like they've got control now of everything, and to get that is easy with the new opportunities that are coming, but you've got to be chasing those opportunities. It's very hard for like everyone to do it, so you've got to set yourself out from the pack. And like I was a high earner, and it's not easy to work for that long. You know, I grinded from, you know, I brought myself back from difficult positions to I worked and worked and worked and worked, and 10 years down the line, you can really feel that you've been worked to death. You know, it's not an easy thing. So for me, I'm looking at minimizing that expense so that my outgoings are so low that I can live off what my sort of equity gives me in terms of interest, which is basically a way of cheating the system. You know, I'll have the same amount of time on my hands as a millionaire does, except he'll have more assets. But those assets mean nothing to me, you know, because without the human connection, which a lot of rich people lose anyway, then it doesn't really mean much to me. And that's what I'm in it for. So yeah, what pisses me off is the lack of opportunity, the lack of quality life for people, particularly young males and women too. But young males in particular have lost a lot of the opportunity they had to be either good people or good earners and good career men or good family men, it's not easy to do that anymore. Yeah. So it's important to find other avenues to cheat the system.
Yeah, I understand the context and what you're using it, like cheat the system. But now because I see it so differently, it's like I've come from underneath the submarine. I see it so clear above the water. It's like, oh, you're actually just using the system. Do what the banks do what the businesses do what they do in principle of your own moral compass, and you will succeed. And there was a crazy example given in this property seminar, which was one serviced accommodation deal. So it'd go like this. I'd get it pitched in 30 seconds. Find a property near hotels and high traffic areas, and you take a place, ideally with multiple rooms, and you rent that off the landlord because the landlord's got a headache and he's got a problem, and you solve that for him. You rent it for a business rather than yourself, so you ain't dealing with that headache either. And then you rent each room out as serviced accommodation. And you do that through Airbnb, booking.com, something like that, so you can charge higher margins. Something like that could generate profit of up to 60K on one deal. You can get up to 60K per annum. You're getting paid more than a brain surgeon does on one deal.
Yeah.
And that shook the room up. And although like some people understand these things, when you actually break it down, I feel what you're saying, because there's obviously a need for brain surgeons. There's obviously a need for these people, and there's no shame in any of these jobs. I mean, one of the people I rate most is the bin men. When the bin men come through, I always feel like, yes, boys, let's go. And there's no shame in that. But if you are struggling to make ends meet, you have to be able to be adjustable and adaptable to these skills, and you'll get eaten alive if you don't, because everyone's heard the saying, it's just business. And it's actually an operation of mental state. I'm realizing is that no one can even bother to consider you because you haven't considered yourself yet. And until that happens, no one will take you seriously. So I feel what you're saying. So I mean, this is a bit of a jump, but there's a story I want you to share with us. I always get in this end of the show or this part of the show, people to tell a little story. And I'm interested in, you can pick a story if you've got one that comes to mind that's quite interesting, but I would be interested to hear about that cow story. That when you found that cow, you stumbled across that cow. Tell us a little bit more about that. What happened there?
Yeah. So we were out kayaking on the River Towie. We thought it was going to be 2.5 hours from one location to another. Turned out to be like an 8-hour slog down this river because the flow wasn't very appreciative at all. So we had to paddle the entire way. Yeah, about 3/4 of the way into that journey, we came around the corner, and my friend, he saw it first, and I could tell by his reaction something bad was around that corner, you know. And there it was, a little calf, and like at the base of the calf had fallen off this bank, and it was stuck right next to the river. And the next flood or rise in water level would have just wiped this poor little thing out. And you know, when a cow gets in trouble, all the other cows will make a scene. You know, they'll kick off. You'll hear them from a mile away. And there was none of that, which told me that this cow had been there for a long time because the other ones had given up on him or her. And also the tracks at the bottom. This thing had been running back and forth on the narrow little stretch that it had. And you could tell it was quite thin and sort of exhausted. So we knew it'd been there a long time. And the farmer would just have never have seen it from the fields where it should have been. It would have just been left there. So we both knew what to do straight away. Like, we weren't going to leave it there. We jumped out. Tom, my friend, sort of surrounded it, pushed it back towards me. And yeah, luckily it wasn't too big, so we got our hands on it and just launched the thing back up the bank there. And yeah, saved someone their beef burgers one day.
Would you think, this is interesting for me, because I'm always curious to know how certain things we practice and train translates to real life situations. And one example I think of in my mind is, whether you've seen this, but do you remember when Caleb Plant went to slap Canelo Alvarez? And
Yeah.
Canelo slipped and slapped him and hit him twice in under a second. And I was like, fuck, I love seeing that real. That's why I was also interested in parkour, because there was this train, go to these walls, go to these spots, but you might actually need that one day. It might fucking save your ass in some situations. So do you think strength training helped you save that cow?
Yeah, when I saw the cow, I was like, oh my God, this cow is going to be strong. You know, it weren't small. And I've done a lot of grappling in my time, judo, jiu-jitsu, that kind of thing. And I thought, oh God, here we go. I'm going to get my ankle trampled or something. And I just put my hands on the cow and I was like, yeah, I've got complete control over this animal. You know, it was like the hand strength just on that cow. Yeah, it paid off. It paid off.
I love it, mate. I honestly, I relate to it so much because I've been, it's a bit of a different example, but I do a little bit of jujitsu with Shadow now. And there's just a way
Yeah,
I can,
nice.
I can safely grab him, you know, grapple him, move his body in certain ways. And I think that's a big problem. I see, you know, if anyone's followed me online, you'll see I've got this kind of interesting relationship with the local cows. And
Yeah.
I found it wasn't like that to start off with. I had all this fear in my mind. They're big, they're this. And then it didn't take me long because I realized that I actually spoke that language more than I did English, which is energy. Just understand energy, proximity, and you can have a conversation with these beings. And I find that these kind of experiences actually help a man. I'm going to speak from a man's perspective, but help a man grow. And I had a little bit of a debate. Well, I'm going a bit all over the place here, but I'm bringing it to something that these activities that we practice, the sport of arm wrestling, martial arts, the judo, they are almost like ways of leveling up in life for you to be less driven by fear and carry yourself more with confidence.
Mm.
And first question I have is, do you feel like this should be actually implemented? Like this actual need now for where we're at, that some form of martial art or this practice of discipline should actually be implemented in schools?
Yeah, healthy body, healthy mind, and I don't think the government will make money off a healthy body is the problem. So they're not going to empower it. You know, like if you look at the money that comes in off sugar imports, they're just not going to get rid of sugar. Are they? They're going to promote chocolate bars instead of promoting martial arts or whatever, which you know, you will be punished more if you use martial arts in self-defense in this country. So it's not something that they're going to want to empower. But I personally think, yeah, martial arts or strength training in general or sports training in general should be like maybe a third of what we do growing up and in life. You know, most adults give up on sport. I gave up on sport before rediscovering strongman and strength training. Um, it should be just instituted into us where everyone does sport at whatever level we can, because yeah, I mean, it's been the only constant through my life, really. It has been training for something, you know, more recently arm wrestling. No matter how much my life has changed, it's still there, which is fantastic. And yeah, healthy body, healthy mind. You really can't expect to wake up at 8 o'clock every morning feeling fresh unless you've got a healthy body.
Hmm. And I want your opinion on this. And be honest, because I was thinking about this a lot myself. But in one of these channels I was in, someone was talking about, you know, practices, what are good practices to start, and like, you know, all this kind of stuff to get more confidence, to get more fit. And there's many things I could say, but I put down these three martial arts. I put down boxing, and these are specific to me: boxing, jujitsu. So that's striking. That's you get on the floor, you know what to do. And then I said arm wrestling. And people, for some reason, thought I was joking. What's your
Yeah.
opinion on arm wrestling actually being a martial art?
So it is a martial art in the sense that, you know, it's a combative sport against each other. You know, I'm trying to take away your physical attributes and deploy my own physical attributes. It's the smallest one in the world. You know, it's the smallest martial art. It's the most controlled martial art. As an actual pursuit for self-defense, yeah, you don't want to, like, an arm wrestler has certain traits, you know, hand strength, thumb strength, arm strength, upper back strength. Um, that make other martial arts very difficult to deploy. So, for instance, wrist locks that certain agencies will use. Like I wouldn't, if I was a police officer, I wouldn't like to have to put cuffs on someone who is trying to resist as an arm wrestler. Because it's going to be very difficult to get that guy's arms behind his back if he's kicking off, for instance. So, like if you already study a martial art, arm wrestling will help you. Like that strength training and stuff. You might be more prone to injury. For instance, like you don't want a bicep tear in the middle of a self-defense incident or something, which is more likely to happen. But just generally, if you're the type of person that can train hard for arm wrestling, you are going to be the type of person that can defend yourself hard in real life. It teaches you to push through pain barriers, to aggressively take things from your opponent. It is a martial art.
I'm glad you said that, because why I wanted to convey this message was for there's a lot of people that are driven by the pressure of other people around them. Like, this is the one, this is the one. And those that are mocking something, there's always a red flag for me when someone's mocking something. It's like, it might not be the most effective thing. I wouldn't defend a takedown with a cup. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't defend a swing with any arm wrestling moves. But to begin confidence, to get up and learn how to compete, to know how to train nuances in your body to become more effective, to dismantle someone else in the hand and back me up on this. Look at the arm wrestlers. They're gamers, they're nerds, they're geeks. They're all sort of don't fit in anywhere else. And it's important that people understand there is a place for everyone. There's something out there for everyone. And it's important to understand there's a message, there's marketing, there's high energy driven ego, but underneath it all, if you miss the principles of start where you can start, if it's an arm wrestling club that gets you into jiu-jitsu, then cool. But to write things off and think they're hilarious, it's like the most emasculating thing is to get a skinny guy to take someone like me and someone twice my weight and me to just pop their hand open. They're going to feel humbled, they're going to feel humiliated, and I'm going to have that experience because I've trained the martial art of arm wrestling. So yeah, I think it's another interesting thing, Daf, that when you said sport, I came from football, and it wasn't so much about community. It was more about rivalry and hooliganism and fighting each other. And there is different sports that bring around different energies. And arm wrestling is definitely something that's kind of brought people together, and it gives a kind of family feel, right?
Yeah, it's very similar to the jiu-jitsu community.
For sure. Yeah. These grappling communities that aren't, there is something naturally intuitive about someone that grapples over striking, and they're more probably sensitive. And I've experienced that everywhere. You can even just look at jiu-jitsu gyms, look at the guys compared to boxing or Muay Thai gyms. They're different. You can see it in their physiognomy, whatever that word is, where you can read someone's character just by looking at their face. Yeah. Do you think that's going to, this is where I'm going to bring the show to a kind of closure here. Arm Gods, Devon Larratt, that event, can't remember the exact name, but Paul Maiden versus Evan Burgoyne, right? Yeah. That's the first I've ever seen, apart from that weird Kentucky guy with a tash that got over emotional and tried to hit a ref. That's the first time I've ever seen something kick off. I found it hilarious because it showed that that's actually the worst argument, that martial arts comes from arm wrestling. But there was a moment there where I was like, is this where we're going? Is this something we're going to see more often? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was in the room when that kickoff happened. I'd literally just arrived at Carlingford, a little bit late, walked in. I could see Devon Larratt was there. I was like so blown away by all these guys. And then I just heard the whap of that can hitting Paul's head. And I looked at him, and people say that Paul went to punch Evan, but he went to grab Evan after that, and the table actually got in his way. That's why it looked like it was the worst punch in the world. And it was real, you know. I don't think either one of them would have, you know, if there wasn't a camera there or an arm wrestling table, neither one of them would have actually fought the other one, you know, because they were walking past each other all day before that happened. You know, they interacted outside and they said, look, let's go to the arm wrestling table and kick off there. So it was a stunt in that sense, but the actual kickoff was pretty genuine from what I could gather. Yeah, I think it is a very real thing in arm wrestling. It's like tempers can go. You know, I've been in some heated matches myself that got quite intense. It's the way it is. You know, we're approaching maximum effort at the table, so you're going to see ugly things on occasion. Is it a good thing? You know, I'm a martial artist. I did judo. You bow at your opponent before and after the match. You know, that's where I'm from, the Kempo world. But yeah, I can see a home for it. I can see a home for it. I can see a home for the showmanship more than the aggression. You know, I'd like to see more just showmanship. Like, let's funnel that energy into character creation. You know.
I'm so glad you said that. It brings up to a beautiful round off, actually. And I'm going to close by expressing this. I'm seeing a lot of this now. I've actually had a challenging week. For some reason, my feeds have been full of stuff that's just triggered me a little bit, if I'm honest with you. It's been, and I'm into all the fight space. I fucking love what Jake Paul's doing. I rate that fight. I bought that pay-per-view the other day. And I'm not about this kind of judgment, you know, Disney cat. I'm too fucking smart. I know what they're doing. Any single human being that wants to get disciplined and focus on something can get fucking good. But one thing I am noticing is this level of immaturity that's coming through. And I see these boxers, and there's a level of it. I'm about pouring the energy into the character creation and fueling the sport in the right way. But I'm also getting a calling to be able to speak about this more, that there's a level, there's actually emotional, insecure, out of control people out there. And that's not a healthy thing, because there is boundaries. And I don't say this to be a tough guy, but my ability to pick up on energy, I won't let someone get near me if they're a little bit hasty, or I won't let them get near me. And I'm just going to defend myself. I don't know how that's going to look, but I'm going to defend myself. And I want there to be kind of a standard of etiquette here, because what created that thing was Paul touching Evan's beard. And I was like, all right, you're on the borderline. But as soon as you, like, this brings us to the closing point here as men. As soon as you disrespect a man in front of another man, and especially with touch, there's no fucking rules anymore. It's on. And I think it's important to bring these elements in so we understand where the lines are of theatre. Because my match with Hassan, I said to Hassan, let's go. Like, let's fucking go at it. But of course, I've got so much love and respect for Hassan, so we're able to push that limit. How do you think, as a closing question, how do you think we're able to, if at all, educate people to know where that line is?
Yeah, so I was taught, again, as a martial artist, you can elevate the situation by one step and you are still the good guy. So, like, let's look at the beer can, for instance. Paul elevated it by, you know, maybe 2 or 3 steps by actually touching the guy, you know, like he could have said something, he could have, you know, pushed the table to push Evan or something, but he directly touched him, you know, which is an elevation, say, of 2 or 3. And then Evan skipped a good 5 or 6 steps and went straight to the can to the head. Bam, you know. So both those guys, they skipped too many steps, man. Do you know what I mean? That's what caused it to get nuts. But like, if someone shouts at you, you can shout at them louder than they shouted at you. If someone pushes you, you can push them back harder than what they pushed you. But you know, if someone pushes you, you can't just pull out a weapon and use a weapon. Bam, you know that. So you've got to, as an individual, my advice to anyone would be elevate the situation by no more than 1 step at a time. You know, and then allow the other guy to make that choice. And what you'll eventually find is there's people take a few steps and then it backs off, and they take a few steps, and but you don't want to be this guy who just takes over. So enjoy those steps. It's like, don't back away from it, because that's the last thing you want to do, is back away from being yourself and back away from enjoying the situation that you're in. Just don't take too many steps at the same time.
That's a leaflet. That's a brand new leaflet from Daf. Daf is a data analyst, and for sure, like, just the fact that we got this opportunity to sit down for an hour, talk. Life moves fast. Life moves quick. I'm grateful for you, brother.
You too, Charlie. Yeah, we'll have to do it again soon.
100%. This show's going to come out once a week. Actually starts on Monday with a guy called Daniel, which is a 17-year-old content creator. And he was spitting flames, man. He was on it. He does not fuck around. So I'm excited for people to see it. Always, everything for Daf, everything for me will be in the description. But other than that, if you've taken anything from this episode, let us know in the comments. But there is opportunity for those entrepreneurs, for those hustlers right now that are seeing and feeling something in this arm wrestling space. Approach us, because there is an abundance of opportunity, and there's something that's it's like a pizza that's ready to be pulled out of the oven, and the world does just not know about it yet. And it's kicking off in where all you boys want to be, in Dubai. So there's so many synchronicities there. But Daf, thank you very much for your time.
Yep. Pleasure, brother.
And I will see you on the table.
Take care.
Woo! Thank you, mate. Peace.